Getting my composure here, excuse me. I'm good. Mass Drop. Mass Drop is featuring the Hi-Fi HE4XX headphone. And they were like, oh, really? It didn't really seem like your style. And I was like, what? What are you doing? No. No, actually, I kept myself very calm and collected. And, you know, it was all very dignified, everything. Anyway, the point is, we are righting this wrong, and we have gotten our hands on the new Xeon W, what is it, 3175, Anthony? Is that? 3175X. Excuse me, I meant 3175X. But the thing about this product is that Intel apparently doesn't trust people to, like, use it properly. So they have gone as far as to not just send over the CPU, but even send over a completely built system with the CPU integrated into it for our use. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to open this up and we are going to have my first hands-on experience with the 3175X. After I tell you guys about our sponsor for the day, Mass Drop. Mass Drop. Not a drop, not a drop, just a fling. Wow. Okay. You would have thought I staged that, but Actually, this is here so we can make sure we have the right motherboard in our system later. Getting my composure here, excuse me. I'm good. Massdrop. Massdrop is featuring the Hi-Fi-Man HE4XX headphones. So these are planar magnetic headphones, and Hi-Fi-Man basically requires no introduction. They have a fantastic reputation for building high-quality headphones that sound absolutely fantastic at a fair price. They've got this nice, comfortable velour on the inside of the ear cups here. We're not going to get a chance to get B-roll, David, so do you have that? Very nice. And we've got nice soft padding on the wide headband for nice even weight distribution. These are an open-backed headphone, so you can expect really nice spatial awareness in case someone's calling you or whatever else, and beautiful stereo imaging. So you guys can check these out at the link to Massdrop in the video description. Okay, now let's move on. So this is one of those situations where I kind of wish that we had prepared for the stream at all, rather than just pulling this off the pallet and then getting started. Because if I'd known that this was like a box within a box on top of a box situation, I might have removed one of the boxes. So we don't have to wait so long, but Intel clearly wasn't taking any chances that this would get damaged in shipping. So they have gone ahead and they have double packed it on top of shipping it inside a crate rather than via traditional courier. This is a fun one. I'm really not sure what the rationale was here, but even on the inside box, okay? Make sure you handle that with care, okay? Yeah, I guess, yeah, is that just a message to me directly? Very subtle, you guys. All right. Okay, so we've got some accessories here. This looks like the cables from an EVGA power supply, including one of those ever so beefy, dang it, I forget what, C19 I want to say? I want to say C19 connectors. Can't remember, doesn't matter. Some modular power cables for the inside of the system. Okay, an included copy of Windows, RGB control for the system. They got their priorities straight. Let's go ahead and tip this down again. Oh. Dang it. What's that?
It's fragile.
Fragile, right. Well, the box isn't fragile. The box is fine. Okay. All the packing materials. Here we go. This thing is so friggin' heavy. And the crazy part is that I don't get this. They shipped an entire dual, either 120 or dual 140 millimeter liquid cooling system separately. So am I expected to install the cooler myself? I mean, like, that's fine. I'm fully capable of installing a water cooler. I just mean if you were going to go to the trouble of pre-building the system for reviewers, I would say that installing like a custom grade CPU water cooler like this is probably about as difficult as it gets. So maybe ow. The air's really dry here right now. Just got zapped. Okay. Oh boy. I could have read all the notes that Intel sent over on this, but I figured Anthony's right there. He's read the notes. He can tell me if I miss anything super important. Sorry, everyone. Rip all the users of the HE4XX and really anything else with nice, accurate sound reproduction, because that noise was truly spectacularly awful. All right. So this is actually going to be my first look at Gigabyte's board for Intel's, I guess we would call, what do we want to call it? High-end workstation?
Yeah, with cubes, I guess. Is that what we're going to do now?
Because, like, the thing is, you've got your consumer, which is on LGA 1150, whatever we're on now, 55 right now? Can't remember. It was 56, then 50, 51, 50, I don't know, it's one of those. So you've got your 11.5X consumer platform, you've got your 20XX HEDT, high-end desktop platform. Then you've got entry-level workstations on LGA 2066. Then we've got, Hughes, high-end workstation on 3167. So that is probably why, where should I put this tempered glass? I don't want this to break. I'm gonna put it inside this box. That seems safe. So this is probably why Intel included a new cooler for me. Do you guys want me to install it on stream? I mean, I guess if we're streaming the experience here, we might as well do it, because this is a very kludged together looking solution right here. So what makes this platform stand out from the other ones in Intel's lineup? Well, there are a couple of things. First and foremost, it uses an entirely different socket. So as I alluded to before, this is LGA 3647. So that is like, what, 50% more pins than 2066? More than 50% more pins. Now, what are they doing with all of those pins? I'm glad you asked. So a couple of things. Number one is they need more power, because LGA 3647 at this time goes up to 28 processing cores as opposed to 18 processing cores in the low-end workstation, high-end desktop socket LGA 2066. The other thing that these extra pins do is handle the additional memory channels that are available to this CPU. So when you have all those cores, you need a ton of memory bandwidth in order to keep them all fed. So you can see here, we've got 6 memory sticks installed, but we've also got an additional 6 available DDR4 memory slots. So this is a 6-channel memory controller. Not quite as many as AMD has on EPYC, but hey, who's keeping count anyway? All right, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, this is fun. So everything about this motherboard is basically supersized. You know what, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull this graphics card for now, just so that we can get a bit of a better look at it. So the socket is actually pretty much, takes up the entire area under that copper plate there. And I'll talk through this cooling solution and why it's not really that great once I've popped it off. But the socket is like, I don't know, 5 or 6x the size of a consumer socket. The board itself, actually, Anthony, can I ask a favor of you? Can you stop monitoring the stream for like 30 seconds and grab me an ATX board? Just like that blue PCB Intel one that's in the little like paper thing full of motherboards. You know, just the slidey thing? Yeah. Just like one of those would be great. Is this gonna come out? I swear I have undone the screw. Okay, there it goes. All right. So the motherboard is supersized. A standard ATX board would be about from here to here, down to here, and then would contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 expansion slots. Now, this one also has 7 expansion slots, except for one critical difference. There's actually a gap of 3 expansion slots between where the I/O would normally end on a standard motherboard, an ATX motherboard, and where the PCI Express expansion would begin. But all that space is getting taken up because here, thank you. Check this out. ATX motherboard for scale. This, all the way over here. This is still motherboard, folks. It is like double the size. So here's another thing that's taking up Mondo space. On a standard motherboard, this area up here, kind of in between the CPU socket and the top, and then in between the CPU socket and the I/O of the board, is typically reserved for your VRM. So that's where you take your 12-volt DC that's coming out of your power supply, and you turn it into nice, clean, stable power at the voltage that your particular CPU requires. Well, that space wasn't enough, and instead, this entire segment of the board, all the way along the top with this gigantic heat pipe cooler and 4 cooling fans on it, is the VRM. That, my friends, is exactly how much power Intel expects could be consumed by this CPU. Now, the thing is that this socket exists in the server space where motherboards really do just have about this much PCB space dedicated for VRM. So what's the deal here? It's because of the overclocking. So those boards are intended to run CPUs that are just running within spec. There's going to be world record sub-zero overclockers fooling around with these things, so they needed to make sure that they were beefy enough to handle multiple times over, potentially, the power draw of what you'd get even with a 28-core Xeon running on a standard server. What else is exceptional about this thing? I'm actually going to start pulling it out. So, oh man, where do we even start with this? They've gone and kind of cable managed everything. Okay, why don't we find out what else we're dealing with here? So we've got a 1080 Ti. Oh, we're going to need to replace that. We're going to need something 2080 Ti class by the time we fire this up, right, Anthony? Yeah, probably, but not just yet. I've got one in my office that we can actually borrow from my bench. I was working on the 8K red footage video today. You know what? I know why this. Sorry, everyone. I know why this is so heavy. I'm going to go ahead and pull the tempered glass panel off the back here. So between these two tempered glass panels, this thing just weighs way too much. It's way too much. Get it? Way too much mass. You can't fire me! You can't fire me because I already fired me. That joke was terrible. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and pop this over here. Yeah, that's really, really heavy. David, do you promise not to trip over this if I put it here? Okay, all right. I'm gonna put it up here then. It's probably fine. Probably fine. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at what all they installed in this thing. Oh, there's some pretty fun hardware in there. So they threw in one of the U.2 versions of their 905P series Optane SSDs. So that looks like it's going to be our boot drive down there. We've got EVGA's Supernova 1600 T2. That's an 80 plus titanium 1600 watt power supply. Of course, all the fans and everything are hooked up. So this must be like one of their demo systems, because even though it's got, some pretty nice hardware and decent cable management and everything, like it doesn't have the I/O shield or anything like that in. So this has got to be like an early sample board. This is a funny thing to me. You've got so many PCI Express lanes. So these things are equipped with, is it 48, Anthony?
Yeah,
48. So 48 PCI Express Gen 3 lanes, but there's almost none of it dedicated to I/O here. And I remember noticing this about one of ASUS's early engineering, like prototype grade boards for this platform. But a lot of the time what you'll see on like repurposed server hardware for desktop use is you'll see like gaps like this, where stuff that wouldn't make sense on the desktop, like VGA and like a serial port, might just get left off, and then the gaps on the PCB are just left so that they don't have to redesign that for what is definitely going to be a very, very low volume part. They only have to redesign the parts of the board that they actually need to change, and then they'll just reuse other stuff. So I think that's why we ended up with really bare bones I/O on this particular board. At least that's one theory. Like, I don't actually know for sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and start popping things off here. So note as we go, all the connectors I'm removing. So that is two 6-pin PCI Express connectors going into the motherboard right there. Those are for, apparently, they're OC PEG_1. Now, I don't know if those are for high power draw graphics cards being in here, because you could put up to 4 graphics cards in here. And remember, even though 4-way SLI is dead as of, I think 2 generations ago or whenever it was, overclockers are still able to enable it for certain benchmarks. So I don't know if these are for that or if they're extra power for the CPU. I would have to consult the manual to find that out. But I kind of lean towards probably for graphics, just because there isn't anything else for that. And there are plenty of power connectors for the CPU, as we are about to see. So as we go up this edge, I'm pulling out our U.2 data cable for our Optane drive down there. We've got 2 fan connectors for these beefy boys that are on this very custom Asetek cooler. We'll dig into that a little bit when we remove it. This is going to be a much longer stream than I expected. So David, how's your back? You good? Okay, well, get buckled in, because this is going to be quite a thing. I didn't realize I was